98% of men believe they know how to give oral pleasure. They do it with confidence, convinced they're mastering the moment, that they understand what a woman feels. But the truth, from her point of view, is completely different. Most do it wrong. Not because they don't try, but because they don't understand what her brain truly needs to enjoy. And here lies the difference no one ever explained to you. It's not about doing it better, but about stimulating her brain before her body. When a woman senses that you're focused only on the physical, her mind goes into analytical mode. She evaluates, observes, judges. But when she feels that you're present, that your movements respond to what her body expresses without her having to say a word, her brain releases oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins all at once. That chemical mix not only heightens pleasure but creates a sense of fusion, total surrender. That's why the secret isn't in the tongue, but in the emotional rhythm you communicate with it. Most men make the same mistake. They start too fast. Their intention is good, but their biological rhythm is different. The male brain seeks results. The female seeks process. If you start without creating anticipation, you interrupt the most powerful phase of female pleasure. Anticipation. Neuroscience calls it the sensory projection phase, the moment when the brain imagines what's coming. That imagination releases dopamine before contact, preparing the pleasure receptors. Want to know how to activate it? Simpler than you think. Before any physical touch, use your breath as your guide. Breathe close to her skin but don't touch. That slight stream of air activates superficial nerve endings and sends a signal to the brain saying, "It's about to happen, but not yet." Right there, in that sweet torture of anticipation, real pleasure begins. It's not the contact that excites her, but the fact that it hasn't happened yet. When you start, don't aim for intensity. Aim for connection. The key is to follow her breathing, not your impulse. If she exhales, pause. If she sighs, change rhythm. That breathing synchrony produces what's called limbic coherence, where her pulse and yours begin to align. It's real, measurable science. The brain interprets that alignment as absolute trust. And when the body feels safe, pleasure multiplies. Think about this. Nothing excites a woman's brain more than being understood without words. When your movements respond to what her body says without speaking, her mind enters a state of deep surrender. At that point, every touch, every pause, every rhythm change feels amplified. It's as if time slows down and the body becomes a single wave of sensation. And now, here's something you can apply today. Stop thinking in terms of speed and start thinking in terms of continuity. Female pleasure isn't built with strength. It's built with predictability. When the brain detects a stable rhythm, it relaxes. That relaxation opens the door to climax. Every time you change rhythm or pressure abruptly, her brain exits that state and loses part of the connection. That's why less is more. Steady, intentional motion creates far more pleasure than any aggressive or rushed movement. Even the most experienced men make this mistake. They think they must impress. But female stimulation isn't a performance. It's synchrony. If she senses anxiety or effort, her brain activates the alert system. But when she feels calm, her body responds instinctively. Male calmness is the most powerful aphrodisiac there is. And this isn't poetry. Studies from Harvard University showed that the female brain associates slow, consistent patterns with emotional safety. That feeling reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, and at the same time increases dopamine and oxytocin. In other words, the calmer you are, the more pleasure she feels. Think of it this way. Female pleasure is a language, and the mouth only translates what the mind says. If your goal is to provoke a quick reaction, her body perceives it as pressure. But if your intention is to follow her rhythm, her brain interprets it as surrender. That's the difference between provoking pleasure and building it. From today, remember 3 things that change everything. First, never start without creating anticipation. Expectation activates the mind before the body. Second, maintain a steady, conscious rhythm. The female mind links repetition with trust. And third, use your breathing as a mirror of hers. That creates an unconscious connection that her brain interprets as deep intimacy. Do this, and you'll notice the difference instantly. Not because your technique changes, but because her perception of you does. And when that happens, when her mind feels in sync with yours, no movement, no word, no physical act can match the intensity of what she feels. Now, tell me in the comments. Have you ever felt you were doing everything right, but she didn't react as you expected? Did you feel something was missing, but you couldn't explain what? Write it down. This space is for men who want to understand what no one ever taught them. Because on this channel, it's not about empty techniques. It's about the science of human connection. Stay with me because what comes next is the most important part. How to turn that synchrony into a complete cycle of mental and physical pleasure. What I'm about to tell you will not only enhance her experience, it will transform yours. Because when you understand how her mind and body connect, you discover that real pleasure isn't what you give, but what you awaken in her. What you're about to discover is not a technique. It's a form of biological communication. Female pleasure responds to signals the body emits without her even realizing it. They're automatic responses, designed by evolution to assess safety, connection, and synchrony. Once you learn to read them, everything changes. You don't need to do more, you just need to do differently. Imagine this. When arousal begins, blood flow increases in the nerve endings, but it only continues if the brain interprets the stimulus as positive. If it senses insecurity, adrenaline rises and blocks that expansion. That's why there are moments when you feel she was just about to reach it. And suddenly, something stops. It's not technique, it's a brain signal saying, "Stop, I'm not ready yet." What you do next determines everything. The solution lies in what neurosexologists call sensory feedback. It means a woman's body tells you, in real time, how it's processing pleasure. Her breathing, her micro-movements, muscle tone, even the temperature of her skin. If you can read them, you can adjust your rhythm exactly to what her brain needs. And when that happens, pleasure stops being a sequence of stimuli. It becomes a continuous wave that doesn't end until she releases all accumulated tension. How do you achieve that? The first step is synchronized breathing, not yours, hers. Watch her. Female breathing accelerates rhythmically but irregularly at first. The moment you notice a steadier pattern, match it with your own breathing. If she exhales, pause for a second. If she inhales, resume your rhythm. That synchronization creates what neuroscience calls cardiac coherence, a physiological alignment between two nervous systems. Her body interprets it as safety. Her brain translates that safety into desire. The second step is continuity of stimulation. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. Men tend to change too quickly, thinking more movement equals more pleasure, but they actually interrupt the dopamine circuit. Every sudden change resets the pleasure signal. A steady rhythm, with soft, controlled pauses, creates what's known as sensory summation, a progressive buildup of stimuli that heightens pleasure without overwhelming the nerves. The third step is mental contact. Before each physical stimulus, introduce a gesture, a word, or a look that reinforces her sense of surrender. Verbal communication in that context activates the hippocampus, the part of the brain that associates pleasure with emotional memory. That's why the most intense experiences are unforgettable. They're stored in the same neural network as our happiest memories. Many men think they have to impress with skill, but what truly makes the difference is emotional presence. When she feels that every movement you make carries intention, her mind releases control and allows her body to express itself without fear. That's the ideal condition for deep climax. If you want to apply it tonight, do this. Don't aim for an immediate reaction. Start with the environment. The female brain needs the senses to work together. Warm light, comfortable temperature, slow breathing. Speak little, but with a low and calm voice. A deep tone stimulates the vagus nerve, directly connected to her internal pleasure system. Then approach without touching. Breathe near her, let your air brush her skin. Wait a few seconds. That waiting activates dopamine. Then, when you start, maintain a steady rhythm for at least 30 seconds. Don't change, don't improvise. Let her brain register the pattern. You'll see her breathing deepen, her hands searching, her hips moving. That's the sign her limbic system is synchronized with yours. At that point, pleasure doesn't depend on what you do. It depends on your ability to maintain stability. If you notice her body tense, don't speed up, slow down. Tension means her body is near climax, but if it senses urgency, the response stops. Stay calm, control your breathing, and let her body decide the next move. When she feels you're not rushing her, her brain releases a second wave of oxytocin, the one responsible for muscle spasms and that total sense of surrender. What I'm telling you isn't erotic technique. It's applied physiology. Female pleasure is the purest reflection of harmony between mind and body. And when you learn to master that language, you discover what almost no man understands. That true satisfaction doesn't come from provoking a reaction, but from creating a space where her body can express itself without fear. Now think about this. How many times have you felt you did everything right, yet she couldn't fully let go? That gap between what you do and what she feels is what science calls erotic dissonance, the mismatch between male intention and female interpretation. Today you've learned how to erase it. And I promise when you apply it, her body won't just react differently. Her mind will remember it as something completely new. Try it. This time don't chase the result. Chase the synchrony. Breathe with her, stay calm, and let her body guide you. When you do, you'll understand that real power isn't in intensity. It's in connection. And I promise you, when she crosses that threshold of deep pleasure, it won't be because you did it harder, but because for the first time you did it with her mind.